But it was great to be part of something like that, just to be part of that franchise. And one of my favorite moments, thanks to Dan Trachtenberg, was I remember what made Predator real for me when I watched it was in Predator 2, when Danny Glover he kills the guy, and and all of a sudden they all reveal themselves in the spaceship, and he's like, he knows he's done, and so he kind of relents, and then they kind of let him go. Right, like they pick up the body of the guy he killed, and then he turns around and he throws him a flintlock as a war trophy.
Talent Talk is sponsored by Company of Rogues Actors Studio, New York-style training for actors at all stages of their journey. With our part-time classes and full-time masterclass program, Rogues provides a unique post-secondary option under the guidance of working professionals. Mentoring and developing professional film and theater artists since 1993. Calgary's longest-running independent studio offers practical hands-on classes in a positive, supportive environment. Check us out at corogues.com. Company of Rogues, passionate about the art of acting.
Hey everybody, I'm Gary McLean. You're watching Talent Talk. Thanks for tuning in. If you haven't done so already, please do go to the Talent Talk YouTube channel and subscribe today. As always, the support's appreciated. And also, just in case you're not aware, these episodes are available on podcast mediums such as Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, just to name a few. If you'd like a full list of where you can actually listen to it, check out the description details of this and previous episodes. Now, before I get to today's guest, I do want to say that, this is actually the first in-studio session we've had in 4 seasons, so since 2019. So I'm very excited about that. And not only are we getting back to in-person ones, but we are also very excited to be adding some sponsors and support to the entire project. One example is this beautiful space that we're in right now is through 6 Degrees, and a big thank you to them for allowing us to use their space and their engineer. Another one is Company of Rogues. They're another great sponsor, which is a local school, acting school and studio. RJ Talent, who's a great talent agent that's helped support us as well through this. And Workflow Films, who is actually operating the camera right now. So thanks to Workflow Films. And we've also had a new addition to the team just recently in Herd of One Media. So thank you to Herd of One.
And?
Julian Black Antelope.
No, it's affiliate company, County Coup Indigenous Film Academy.
Of course. How silly of me. That was part of my next introduction. But yes, as Julian has mentioned, Counting Coup. So, anyway, moving on. Now we can actually talk about the guest, who's very exciting. He was actually here in season 1 when we were doing the live interviews to begin with. So super excited to have this guy back on. He represents the Buckskin Black Horse family of the Weasel People, is founder, CEO, and president of Counting Coup Indigenous Film Training Academy, is an internationally known actor, but is also well known behind the camera as a writer, director, producer. So please join me in welcoming this guy, Julian Black Antelope.
Hey, Gary, thanks a lot.
Yeah, nice to have you on the show.
Nice to be here. And man, congrats on everything. Like, this is just so light. Like, it's so changed so fast. It's so great.
Right?
This is awesome.
I know. I'm going to have proper sound. I'm very excited about that.
Sound is always good. Especially on podcasts. They tend to get a little boring when you can't hear what's going on.
Yes. And
I'd also like to say thank you to all the local sponsors for Gary's show, too. It's so nice to see local people sponsoring local talent.
Yes, absolutely. Like I mentioned to you pre-show, this is kind of a big push for me this season, and very excited to get these folks on board and help elevate Talent Talk.
Oh, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Good on you.
Thank you. So what have you been up to? Like I said, last time we actually chatted like this was 2019, and you have done a lot since then.
I did a little bit of gardening and took up a little bit of Kanask. No,
nice.
I've been busy just kind of with my nose to the grind, doing stuff on projects and trying to put pieces on the chessboard, so to speak. I've been busy acting. I've got a little bit of burnout right now, actually. But I've been going pretty hard since actually 2016 to get my company off the ground, Heard of One Media, building my television series, Secret History. We just shot the first season. It aired, and we're just finished. We're ready to go into airing for the second season. And we're moving into the third season for development and production too as well. And amongst all that, acting, of course, in various things here and there, wherever duty calls and I have to go, which I love it too. And also the launch of in my Indigenous Film Academy, Counting Coup Indigenous Film Training Academy. We just completed a pilot project in partnership with Siksika Nation in June of last year. So
Excellent.
A few things, and plus trying to be a dad in there somewhere and make sure my wife doesn't forget who I am.
It's a balancing act, right? Absolutely.
It's a big time balancing act, a big juggling act, yeah.
Well, I kind of find it funny because the last time we were in this scenario, you were actually kind of in post-production of the first season of Secret History.
Were we?
We were, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd already done my scene in there, and you'd given me a little shout out. I was super happy about that.
Yeah.
And then I think it was later in the next year or something like that, it actually kind of came out. And here we are, kind of in the same scenario where now you're in post-production of season 2.
That's right.
And so how is post-production coming on that?
Well, it's not without its own charm, as it always is. It's a lot of work. I'm kind of my own post supervisor on it too, and also being the showrunner. So it's a lot of approvals, a lot of kind of seeing the big picture of everything and making sure that everything's coming together as it should be. And it's quite a bit of work too, because I'm also, as you know, I got to create 13 episodes of a language version of it too. So a Blackfoot version of it too. So it's like creating 2 series for one. So it's a lot to navigate, a lot to juggle, but a lot to organize. But it's has its ups and downs. I guess for me, I love those little moments, like when I see like the artwork come in or something for an approval. I was like, oh, that looks so great. It's like those little things is what kind of makes all the crap of, the big mess, the big workload of it bearable. Or like when you see a visual effects element come into, it's been built and, they took your vision and they built it and it looks just like what you thought, or if not better. Or you hear the music score or something. Those are the elements that make it all worthwhile.
Does it get to you in a certain way where you're just like, oh man, like this is so awesome. Why am I not releasing this already? Like,
well, a little bit, it's kind of like a love-hate relationship. Usually by the end of the post process, I'm sick of my own series already because I've watched like each episode about, 37 times. You got to review everything, right? But in the end, I guess, it's that buffer zone where it's leading up to the launch on an air date and you're building the social media presence and everything else and doing press and stuff to advertise for it. And then when it's finally launched, it's kind of like sit back and wait and see what happens. Right. But then, when people's comments start coming in, it's usually, it's really very positive. So
okay,
just kind of do what I can, make it as best as I can with what I can and hope for the best.
So have you come across any really big stumbling blocks that you've struggled to overcome, or even from season 1?
Like creatively, you mean?
Creatively, or even getting it out there.
Getting it out there. Well, COVID was a big thing for us. Like I was ready to go into production in 2020, and of course it was like lockdown, killed everything. And then when that was sort of lightening up at the end of the year, it was like the hovering of lockdown and the COVID rules, and being a smaller production, I just could not take that risk. If we got shut down for COVID, you got to pay everyone for 2 weeks, and there goes my budget. Like,
right,
it'll kill me to start up again. So I had to push and push and push and push and delay. And then, of course, 2021 opens up and prime time for shooting. But then the lid's blowing off of the film industry here in Alberta, which is, thankfully, it's about time and it's really great. But there's no crew. So, and I can't blame people for jumping on these giant shows that are A tiers and stuff like that. Like, of course, everyone needs to make money now, especially after a lockdown. So that kind of shot me in the foot too. And I was like, I can't afford to, have crew and they jump ship after a couple of days here and there, and it'll just be a nightmare itself. So I pushed again. So that was one of the biggest hurdles was, I guess, the COVID, the aftermath of COVID, which is a positive aftermath for the industry here. And then just kind of putting it on its feet again to, get it shot and out the door.
Right. And so do you kind of have an estimated timeline as to when you might get it out there?
It's up to the network, really. I mean, ABTN, Aboriginal People's Television Network. It could be aired as early as fall, or it could be aired as late as winter, like what they call their winter airing month, which is in February of the following year. It's really up to them. Both are really great windows. Nobody wants to be aired in the summertime. It's terrible.
Well, yeah. Who's watching TV, right?
Yeah, exactly. But it's really up to them. But anywhere from September to February, somewhere in there.
Okay, excellent. And like you said before, you've been really busy on the acting side as well. Mm-hmm. You were in quite a few episodes of Tribal, which has gone on for 2 seasons now, or is there
2 seasons? I'm not sure what's happening with a third. It could be going or it could be in development. I don't know. That was another one that because of COVID, we shot our second season in the end of 2019 and then, of course, the shutdown. So I don't know if they just decided to roll it up and move on for a different production or something, or if it just wasn't worth it, or I'm not sure what's going on with that.
Okay. Well, because you were such a integral part of the show, do you mind just explaining a little bit what your character was and maybe even a little bit about the show itself?
Yeah. Tribal's what do you call it? A procedural crime drama. And it's kind of, it takes place on a fictional reserve, which is a bunch of reserves that surround the city core, kind of like what we have here. There's Tsuut'ina Nation, there's Calgary, and there's like Stoney Nation and so forth. And it's a procedural crime drama, but it's based on real events that have happened in the newspaper and news headlines. So, and it's a really good, hard look at a lot of the issues that Indigenous people face, especially on reserve, the tribal politics, how the tribal politics are, and kind of the racism that happens too. So, two great actors, Jessica Matten and Brian Markinson are the leads. Brian's kind of a little bit of a bigot, seasoned veteran detective or whatever from the city. And Jessica Matten was, she rose to become chief of tribal police and took my position, I was the former chief of tribal, Daniel Crowchild. And I kind of ran things the way I knew best. Like I did a lot of bad things for the right reasons to navigate those politics in the best interest of the people, but they weren't necessarily legal.
Right.
So I got overthrown and eventually was working my way back in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. And obviously we don't know if you've actually worked your way back in at this point yet. So,
It was looking pretty hopeful.
Well, here's hoping for season 3 so we can find out.
Yeah, no, it's, just after COVID in 2021, it was, because of the BIPOC movement, that was great for everybody. Ethnic and Indigenous, especially Indigenous. It was like the whole film industry discovered this new race of people, and they're called Indians. It was amazing. So it is, roles were just happening, just bang, bang, bang. I was bouncing around quite a bit, flying in and out, different places, Vancouver, all over across Canada, and then landed. I was in Prey, as you know.
Yes, that was my next one.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Yes. Well, I was going to say, I've actually watched that movie like 3 times already. And great film. Loved it.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about your role within it.
My role. Well, actually, we shot a lot more than it was showing. That's for sure. They chopped a couple of the storylines, the B and C storylines, to keep the focus on the lead, Amber. Which, surprising because my character was in camp. I was a chief and sick and dying and trying to find a predecessor and this, that, and the other. So it would have taken away from the action once they were in the forest fighting with the predator. To keep coming back to the camp, it would have slowed things down. So to me, I just kind of looked like a little bit of a glorified background performer in that. But, it was fun. I'm glad to be part of it.
We need the director's cut.
Yeah, who knows? Like, I don't know. I'm sure Dan Trachtenberg probably has his own version he wants to come out. But I mean, the character is really cool. I liked him because he was flawed. He was buggered up and crippled, and they put all these prosthetic scars on my back that nobody ever seen in the final edit. But it was, this guy that was just like on his way out the door, literally, right?
He's seen life.
Yeah, and he didn't see the forest for the trees that he has a predecessor right here with her because she's a female, right? So he's a little bit blindsided by that. But it was great to be part of something like that, just to be part of that franchise. And one of my favorite moments, thanks to Dan Trachtenberg, was I remember what made Predator real for me when I watched it was in Predator 2, when Danny Glover he kills the guy, and and all of a sudden they all reveal themselves in the spaceship, and he's like, he knows he's done, and he kind of relents, and then they kind of let him go. Right, like they pick up the body of the guy he killed, and
the handgun.
And then he turns around and he throws him a flintlock as a war trophy for killing, as a coup, right? And he looks at it, and Raphael Andolini, right, 1750, and I was like, yes, this is so real. They were here all along.
Absolutely.
And so that was when she throws me the flintlock, I was like, yes, this is my moment here.
Right?
Yeah, that was awesome. So that was like a little, I guess a childhood sort of thing for me. I was like, yes.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it was so nice to see, like, a young Indigenous lead. Like, I know that was one thing that was very, I watched it with my youngest daughter. She's 13, and she was just like glued to it. It's not her type of film, but it's because I think she could see herself in that role. She could see herself as that person, somebody who's achieving great things, right? And it was so, it was long overdue to see something like that where, this young female Indigenous character rises to the top and slaps everyone out of the way, right? And shows everyone up. I think that was great. It was awesome. And I think it probably was life-changing, I think, for a lot of young Indigenous, just talent out there as well, but especially young Indigenous female actresses just go, that's possible. No, I could do that.
Yeah.
So I think it's awesome.
And so it's kind of a good transition into Counting Coup, because that's kind of your whole idea with Counting Coup as well, is to make that available for the Indigenous folks, right? That kind of...
Yeah, it's Counting Coup is based on something that I've always had ever since I started in film and television, like way back in 2004. Ever since I got into the industry, and as you know, I worked in crew positions, and nobody knew who I was trying to build myself as an actor, and I couldn't afford acting lessons, so I was like, okay, I got to get a day job working in crew, and at least I could watch actors. That'll be kind of like my school type thing. And then when I started back then working in crews, I was always the only Indigenous person on a call sheet ever. Right. And I was like, we have these reserves around us, so how come there's not more people working here? And it's really a connection and a geographic thing, right? And so I talked to a friend of mine, Tim Brewsted, and he always wanted to put a stunt team together in place that would, at a time, I was doing stunts and we talked about it, and he wanted to build a stunt team, an Indigenous stunt team. And I said, you know what? I always wanted to make a school where, we could train people to do acting and stunts and write and direct and produce and all the things that people do in television. But somehow it has to be paid because, like I know for me, I couldn't afford acting lessons. I could barely afford gas sometimes to get to work. Back when I was a PA and stuff like that, it was tough. So, and I know for people on a reserve, there's not a lot of opportunity. So how do you make that happen? And so it's a seed that I've always carried and thought about and kind of worked in my head. And finally, when I worked my way up the ladder to produce, write, and direct and have my own company, I have always had an Indigenous training program inside my company where, as a small company, I try and take on as many new people as I can and give them opportunity, pay for their, DGC, their set etiquette, their first aid training, flagging, get them all those certificates, and then kind of put them through different departments in the production that I have, whether it's a feature film or a TV series or something. And you kind of give you be a jack of all trades, but master of none, get you a little bit of a taste of something so you could kind of find out what it is you like to do. And, and I always encourage actors because, when somebody just wants to act, I don't want to work as crew. And I tell them that. I go, but you know what? That's what I did. I just wanted to act before. But crew is my day job because working at Costco is not going to teach you anything more about the film industry. Working in a department and being able to understand how the film wheel turns and how the production works actually makes you a smarter actor. You become an autonomous actor, that's not wandering off and people got to chase you down because you're lost and so forth. You understand and you can really work with crew, because I've worked with some actors where, the camera guy or the light guy is like, hey, I know your blocking's here, but we're in a tight space. Do you mind if I put something here? And they're like, you can't. I'm walking there. Or, they don't know how to work around certain things. So once you understand the production, that everything there is to support you as an actor, you become more compliant with trying to help work with the crew too. Slow down that walk because the camera guy's going in reverse and he can only keep up so fast and he's going to fall. And if the camera goes down, that's it for the shooting day, right? So maybe just slow it down a little, work with the guy, right? So in a way, those are just rough examples, but it makes you a little bit more autonomous, I think. And a more savvier actor, I guess. One hand washes the other. So I've always encouraged people who want to be in front of the camera, that's the way to get paid, to train. And now having Counting Coup being realized is a way to get paid training and do it in small modules. So you're not going to school for 2 years and then like, oh my God, how do I get dialed into the film industry and stuff like that? So it's a mixture of in-class certificate training and also practical experience on set. And it's done in 3 months. So from beginning to end, you're not going to be an expert in anything when you come out, but you're going to have some certified training. You're going to know what it's like to work on film set a little bit, and you're going to be connected to those groups. So, if you work, you go, part of your practicum is you go out to work in the art department or something. You might have a job at the end of that 3 months. That production's like The Last of Us. You've worked with the art director, you've worked with the people that are in charge of that. And they're, come on back. If you're great, film people are always looking for good people.
Right.
Right. And to give the school a branding that, we have a little logo, a little hand, right? And, you have that on your resume. It's like, they know that from a distance. Okay, hire that person. We know they got all their certificates. They've been on a film set. They're not just green right out of the bush type, so to speak. Okay. And they got a little bit of practical experience already, right? So it's kind of, somebody said it's like a handout. And I said, no, it's not a handout. It's a hand up is what it is. And it's to connect people into the industry and give them that experience and a taste of it. Because what often happens for people that have never been off reservation is it can be very overwhelming, right? And you go back to what you know. So it gives a little bit of a taste of what it's like to go and work. And then you're back in your home setting again, right? And it's also a time for you to figure out if this is for you. And if not, like I always tell people working in the film industry, if you have those skills and connections, it's, as you know, it's a job you can always just come and go. So if you got a summer off from university or whatever, there's a production in town and you're a member of the DGC or whatever, it's like, throw me in the mix, man. And you got yourself a job. Or you could phone up that person, say, hey, do you got any work coming for me? Yeah, I got some stuff for a couple of weeks or whatever it is. Right. Right. So it's something that you can always float in and out of and help yourself with too. But it was also to give a voice to Indigenous storytellers because we are storytellers, right? And our stories are important and everybody has an important story to tell. So is to foster that in people, because for our people, especially, seeing is believing. And when they see one of ours, and I say one of ours, it sounds wrong, I guess, but when they see another Native person, it's very believable for them. Or you go back home to the reserve and they can talk to you and say, hey, you're that guy on TV on that show or that movie. And it's like, yeah. it has a huge impact because you're back home on the reserve, digging this sweat lodge hole and stuff and doing all the same work for ceremony and stuff with them. But yet you're the guy they just watched on Netflix on something, right? So creating that was a long time coming. And we did the pilot project, to make a long story short, partnered with Siksika Nation, an Old Sun Community College, and just to do a 3-month pilot to see how it worked. And Counting Coup, we hired a management team to run that for that course of 3 months. Some things worked, some things weren't done quite to the expectation that I had for the program. But, it's a learning curve. Like any pilot, you work out the bugs and then retool, revamp, and move on, and then re-implement it. And now I know I've restructured how the program will work now with the Academy. So, sorry, that was a long-winded explanation.
I think it was a great explanation. So it all works. So right now, like, is Old Sun College still kind of affiliated, or?
If we choose to, we both decided to take a little bit of a pause. Like they have with Siksika Nation, they have a bunch of other projects that they need to bring in, and it was a changing of council and so forth. But they liked the program. They thought it was positive. And I know for myself, I just had to step back from it a bit, and so we could retool. But I mean, obviously would welcome a partnership with them again. Some things being so geographically far out on the nation were a little bit of a problematic for some of the instructors, which is kind of funny because now you know what it's like to be Indigenous trying to get a job in town. All right. So you kind of get a little bit of a taste of it. But there is a way around it. And I'm working with another team of people, a new team of people, and we've got a different structure in place, which overcome some of the hurdles that we experienced in the pilot program. So Siksika Nation, more than happy to welcome them if they want to partner again. But I've always wanted to branch it out to all nations throughout Treaty 7 first, throughout Alberta, and then my big blue sky picture is to go nationwide. So you're really reaching into Klavik and Inuvik and places way up there where there is filmmakers up there, but they just don't get those opportunities. And you could go into those communities and teach, and then bring some people out to do their practical experience, bring them back into the community, bring them back out again and bring them back, and then see what they want to do, right? And there is some people that are filmmakers that just need the skills to make their own creative projects up there and stay there. So it's a way to have sort of a reach into various communities nationwide and be able to give them the option to bring their people into mainstream film work and placement in some of the larger productions if they choose.
Okay.
And, yeah.
Well, so have you, this is more of a general question, not necessarily specific to Counting Coup, but have you found over the recent years, 4 or 5 years or whatever, that there has been a more prominent attempt or welcoming of the Indigenous community in film?
There is, lots of there. Yes and no. There's genuine things that are happening, like Counting Coup, like the creator paid opportunity. It's not about fees and salaries. It's about making sure these people have a stipend or something to help them train and get the skills. And then there's other instances where it's presented as beneficial, but really it's just all about capital, trying to trigger and access those streams of money. So unfortunately, it's like anything, you got to kind of sift through, right?
Right.
And, there is people that, they just want to check a box and, bang, 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 and here we go, right? But the idea is, that's the danger is, there's not enough Indigenous creatives in above the line positions, like in writer director that have that experience. Because to get there, you got to work really, like I had to work super hard to get there, and nobody's hiring me as a director on other projects. I hire myself as a director out of necessity, but and I'm creating my own content and doing it on my own, in my own project, right? So the danger of it is, so the people that have those skills are busy on their own projects. So other projects that are looking for an Indigenous director so they could get that Indigenous story out to market, they hire an Indigenous director that might not have that experience, and it's just lip service. And it's almost setting that person up for failure.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? So it's kind of hard. Like anything new, it's like a movement, which is great. It's great. It's opening the door. But I think we got to be really, really careful of who we partner with, and read the fine print, I guess, of what's being asked of you and expected of you, and ask yourself, am I capable of doing this, or do I need to get the proper skills to do it?
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because otherwise it's just like, it's, I don't know, I don't want to get political, but it's kind of like, somebody put it to me like, what those reservation grants are like, right? It's just the government giving you grants like, oh yeah, no, sure, here, it's for the, your healing journey. Yeah, go write a dance piece or whatever, who gives a shit. We gave you 20 grand, we checked the box. Nobody's ever going to see your project or whatever. It means something only to you, and they just kind of move on. You know what I mean? So we don't want those things. We want genuine opportunities happening, I think.
Right. That
are real. Yeah.
Now, I mean, counting Coup to me seems like it's quite the financial endeavor to have this going. Is it all out of pocket through Herd of One, or do you have affiliates that kind of help out?
The Indigenous Screen Office does have some opportunities that I'm going to access. Siksika Nation was the ones who put up the financing to bring in 15 of their candidates that they chose. So they put up the stipend and put up the budget for it, which is really awesome for it. Indigenous Screen Office does have similar opportunities for it. So it's just a matter of putting the pieces of the puzzle together to make it happen.
Okay. And how does someone join or become a part of it? Is there an application sort of process, or?
When it comes time to do another program, it'll be announced, and it might be in partnership with another nation. It might be in partnership with a couple different nations. And it's just the internal mechanics of it is, each nation would sponsor probably their own people to come out. And then Counting Coup, of course, takes care of certain expenses and facilitators and so forth to provide that instruction too as well. So I think it always needs to be a joint effort to make it work.
Okay.
Otherwise, you're just kind of a gun for hire, really, which is not really what it's supposed to be either.
Right. Well, and the thing is, especially in Alberta, right, it does seem like because we all know that the stuff that comes through Alberta is usually Westerns and things of that nature. So there is, to me, a huge market here for the Indigenous group.
It is, but I mean, that's also part of it too, is like breaking that sort of
stigma or stereotype.
Like, oh, hey, we got a Western. Let's get a couple Indians working on it.
That's
like
fair. We're
more than just leathers and feathers.
Yeah.
I remember, when I produced True Fiction, for instance, on Knuckleball, they're like, oh, so this is not an Indigenous story. And I was like, yeah, I know. Oh, well, how come you're working on it? Because I produce. How about that, eh? So it was kind of, it's just that stereotype, right? And, that's kind of what the film industry is kind of painted all along. And that's why Indigenous talent for the longest time was, the most unrepresented demographic in both TV and film, because, like every other ethnicity is represented. But what do you mean? We don't have Indigenous doctors. This is not a Western. This has nothing to do with spooks and spirits or needing to track a bad guy. We don't need Indigenous actors for this. But we are doctors and lawyers and judges and just, the scientist sitting in the corner, or the sound engineer guy, or, we do all those things too. So why can't we be seen in those roles? Right. And I've always said it's different. Like you go to Europe, it's very open. Like it's the right person for the job, because you might get a Asian person with a Cockney accent. So you can't really throw anyone in this box. Right. So they just hire whomever is right for the job, unless it is supposed to be race specific.
Right.
So,
which is the way it should be, right? And I think I remember, and sorry, I'm probably going to really paraphrase this incorrectly, but when we had you on in season 1, you basically said when it comes to script writing, you've got to be able to see everybody in that role.
Yeah.
Right. You don't write a cop role and go, well, that's a big white guy with a buzz cut, kind of deal, right?
Unless it's something that speaks towards the character. He's like some Aryan racist, or
you should be able to see anybody.
Exactly. You should be colorblind, is what it should be. Yeah. And also too, it's especially with the whole gender thing and stuff. Like, it's nice to see. Like, there's so many talented trans actresses and trans actors. That nobody ever really sees them in other roles unless it has a trans or sort of, gender identity through line going through it. I mean, I've always believed if somebody, we see that on breakdowns, please, all non-binary and transgendered people are welcome to apply. But that, you shouldn't have to put that on there. If somebody identifies as a woman and they clearly look like as a woman, and everything about them is a woman, why can't you let them read for a woman's role? Why does it have to be a gender identity storyline? Do you know what I mean? And when you do have those storylines, that's where I think you're only smart to cast somebody that's from that demographic, because only they can speak correctly into that character. As an actor, yes, we have to, manifest and create and do the best we can. But I mean, like, if you got the real McCoy there, cast him. I mean, we wouldn't do that with serial killers, of course. Right?
Yeah, there's limitations.
There's limitations, yes. But, it's like everything. The pendulum has been up here for so long, and it's swinging this way, and then eventually it'll come back to a nice balance where it should be, I think.
Okay.
No?
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I'm going backwards a little bit.
That's okay.
Because I do want to talk about season 1 of Secret History. And you did win some awards. You had tons of nominations, but you did get wins.
I did. I forgot about those.
Yeah, so I want to talk about that a bit and get your take on how that was for you. And did it give any sort of sense of, not accomplishment, but...
it's always nice, for AMPIA to take notice, right? But I mean, a lot of those nominations were for, the craft departments, which is, I think, excellent, because those are the people that helped you make your show. They created it. They put in the blood, sweat, and tears, so to speak. Maybe not as long as you, but they did put in their time. And it's always nice when people are recognized for their talents, I think. So,
absolutely,
winning, a director or writing award is great. Like my ampias actually sit in a little shelf and they're collecting dust. I forget they're even there. They're under something else and they're kind of just there, right? So,
you don't have it like in your seatbelt in the car, passenger seat, as you
drive around, we wanted to put it so you walk in the door and there's lights that come on and blind you.
Little lasers pointing to your name.
No. No, not my thing.
Yeah, fair enough. But I want to thank you for joining us today on Talent Talk, and it's great to see you again, especially here in a studio.
Well, thanks for having me.
Love it. Yeah. So thanks again to 6 Degrees for helping us out today, and of course, Film Flow as well for helping us out with the camera work. And we will see you guys soon, because we'll be doing this again with a lot of extra. We have so much great talent in Alberta that we are hoping to fill this place up. So stay tuned.
And you will.
Thanks, everybody, and we'll see you next time.